Today's video is a report from a soldier who fought in the Second World War. We have deliberately chosen to translate these accounts as they are. We have not censored these historical sources, so they are not neutral. They are the stories and thoughts of people socialized in a time that cannot be compared to the present. Accordingly, some of the statements and political views of the protagonists are inappropriate for our social climate. We explicitly distance ourselves from any political statements and radical opinions of the people shown here.
There
were 7 of us who were supposed to go to Berlin to attend the war college. It was a long way to Berlin. We took every ride and jumped on every train that went to Germany. We arrived after 4 days. It was good to be home. It was May, and young women in airy dresses were walking the streets. After the long time at the front, it was a strange but very beautiful sight. We had a few days off before the training course. I didn't have time to tell my parents, so it was a big surprise when I suddenly showed up at their door. It was very nice. Then something unusual happened. I got a bad fever and chills, and for several days I was hardly responsive. Later, a doctor told me that many soldiers who fought in Russia had this disease. It's psychosomatic, probably due to the stress that the body is trying to process. But after a few days, I began to feel better. In June 1942, the course for leaders began at the junk school. We were divided into a group of leaders. Our leader was Hans Berg, who had also come directly from the front and had become a Hauptsturmführer. There were 30 of us. After the long time with the weapon at the front, it was hard to study all day again with a pen in hand. We had an incredible amount to learn. Pioneer training, tactical warfare, army affairs, and so on. We had to study until late at night, even on Saturdays and Sundays. But I had enough of studying on a Saturday. I went hiking up a mountain with a nice woman. That was more fun. After 2 weeks, there was an entrance examination. By then I had recovered well. I still had problems with my knees from the time in Russia. That was because of the extreme cold. Only 5 soldiers failed the entrance examination. In September there was an intermediate examination, and those who passed it did not have to fear the final examination. I was lucky. In the intermediate exam, I was tested on exactly what I had studied intensively beforehand. I got the best grade in the school. Our leader, Hans Berg, was a good teacher. At 4 o'clock in the morning we practiced reenactments in the woods. When we got back to school at noon, we had an hour's break and could eat. If anyone broke the rules, everyone was punished. Most of the time the punishment was long marches with 25 pounds on our backs. Once we were on one of these marches, and on the way back one of the soldiers jumped on a truck and drove back to the school. This man was discharged the same day and had to return to the front. Another example. When we were at the shooting range, there was 1 ration of food for each of us, and 1 ration was left over. Since we were always hungry, a soldier ate that ration. He didn't know that it belonged to a soldier who had just gone to get ammunition. That soldier was also sent back to the front that same day. Out of 30 cadets, only 11 passed the training course. I was now a standard bearer cadet. I was proud that I could now wear a leader's cap. I had had a leader's cap made weeks before, and now I was finally allowed to wear it. It was December 12th, and I was released to duty. I was hoping to be home with my family for Christmas, but on December 18th, I got my marching orders. I had to be back at Division Wicking by December 20th, but I was only sad for 5 minutes. I was looking forward to seeing my buddies. My mother took me to the station. Then it was back to the front. When I arrived at the front headquarters, I couldn't go any further. They couldn't tell me where my division was stationed because it had been moved. There was a small town there, and me and some other comrades took advantage of the situation and celebrated with a lot of alcohol. The days we had to wait there were almost like peace. Then we took the train to the front. Suddenly the train stopped and everyone had to get off. Russian tanks had broken through. Those damned tanks. As the war went on, the Russians had more and more of them. If you shot one down, 10 more would come. But the tanks were stopped by another unit. so our train was able to continue. A few stops later we had to transfer to freight cars. At the last station we got off and were taken by truck to the divisional command post. Herbert Giller, a Knight's Cross recipient, met us there. He said to us, "It's good to see young blood coming back to the front." I was assigned to my old regiment, Westland. I then reported to the regimental commander, Harry Pullawatch. I arrived at his command post late in the evening. Because it was so late, I was to spend the night there. As I walked by, I heard some orders over the radio and field telephone. It did not sound organized anymore. The mood was tense. The next morning I was transferred to the 2nd Battalion. This surprised me because I had fought in the 1st Battalion since the beginning of the war. Looking back, I know it was a wise decision. It is difficult when a superior has to give orders to friends, and I had many friends in the 1st Battalion. I was assigned to the 2nd Battalion of the 5th Company. I reported to Gerd Lotz and we got along well right away. Then I put on my combat uniform and armed myself. It was 10 p.m. at night. Gerd Lotz pointed to a hill about 2 kilometers away and said that there was a unit of 30 men that I should take over. This unit was in the middle of a battle, and I had to take over the unit during the battle. It was not easy. From that hill, we had heavy fighting day and night for the next few days, and there were terrible casualties every day. One day, a large mobile unit of the Red Army broke through south of our company. Under the command of Lieutenant General Popov, the Russians were able to break through the front. Their goal was to break through to the Dnieper, but we didn't agree. The division was ordered to stop the attack immediately and destroy the armored group. There was fierce fighting and many of my men were killed, but we were able to stop and destroy the large unit. I was injured during the battle for a railway station. That was bad luck. I was taken to a military hospital in Mohyliv-Podilskyi. There were good doctors there and I recovered quickly. There were also Norwegian nurses who took care of the injured soldiers. When I was reasonably well again, a Norwegian woman asked me if I wanted to go to the movies with her. She asked me if I wanted to sit in the back with her or just watch the movie. You won't believe it, but I didn't go to the movie with her. I wanted to get back to the front as soon as possible. That's how stupid I was. I went back to my unit as fast as I could. At that time we were stationed in Donetsk. Suddenly there was nothing going on there. There were no skirmishes and we were well fed. After some time we were transferred and had to cross the Dnieper River, which was about 1 kilometer wide. There were only a few bridges, so there were long traffic jams. It would have been easy for the Soviet Air Force to inflict heavy losses on us at that moment. Thank God they did not attack. When we arrived on the other side, we had to set up positions. We thought we would build these positions to wait out the winter here and continue the attack in the spring, but in November the order came to leave the position. The Russians had established a bridgehead across the Dnieper River further south, and our regiment had to destroy this bridgehead at all costs. It was difficult terrain, lots of sand and no cover. We were divided into assault groups and attacked at dawn. Our group reached the objective with heavy losses, but the other groups failed to break through. So our group was in danger of being surrounded by the enemy. We were ordered to retreat. Under machine gun fire, we retreated to our original position. I felt bad. Many of my men died in vain. We had to attack again the next day. The bridgehead had to be destroyed. There was no other way. Halfway there, my squad was hit by a direct artillery hit. It blew my radio operator's head off. One soldier lost his leg and bled to death instantly. Others were seriously wounded. Shrapnel tore off my steel helmet. I was miraculously unharmed. With the remaining soldiers, we pushed forward and reached our goal with our last ounce of strength and heroism, defending ourselves with our last ammunition. But again, the other squads did not get through. Without protection on our flanks, we had no chance of survival against the superior numbers of the Russians. We were ordered to withdraw again. My group had 80 men in the first attack. Now there were only 14 men left, and we couldn't take a single meter. It was clear to everyone that another attack would completely destroy our unit, but our division commander, the damned idiot, once again gave the crazy order, "The bridgehead must be destroyed." Our beloved Obersturmbannführer August Dietmann stood up to the division commander and told him that this order was suicide. but the division commander was stubborn and repeated his order. We had to attack again. At that moment, August Dietmann showed himself to be a true leader. He shouted to the division commander, "If my men have to die there, I will die with them." He put on his best uniform, left the bunker and came to us at the front. He was wearing all his medals, which was very impressive, because among them was a Knight's Cross with oak leaves. He joined us at the front. No one said it, but everyone knew that this attack would be our end. I had the honor of fighting right beside him, so I saw him get killed up close. He was shot in the head. Almost at the same time I was shot in the thigh. Our attack was mercilessly crushed. All those young men were running to their deaths. It's hard for me to say. Only 3 men survived, and I was one of them. August Dietmann was later buried with full military honors, and the damn bridgehead was still there. The bullet wound in my thigh was not serious. I didn't even have to go to a military hospital. I was quickly fit again. We retreated to our old position and licked our wounds. Fortunately, the Russian front remained quiet. We got new soldiers, but they were younger and less well-trained. We used every minute to train the young men better. The really good soldiers, the ones you need to win a war, had all been killed by this point in the war. We held our ground until Christmas. Luckily, we got mail from home at Christmas. Clothes, food and alcohol. The mood improved accordingly. On January 2nd, the Russians broke through near us again. We knew it would start again. But it was worse than we thought. A short time later, we received word that we were surrounded. In the history books, this battle became known as the Battle of Korsun. Of course, we all had to think about Stalingrad, but we did not want to suffer the same fate as the 6th Army. We took up defensive positions. We fought the enemy from morning till night. In the evening, we marched back 15 kilometers to the fortified defensive positions. There, the Russians could not overrun us at night. In the morning darkness, we marched the 15 kilometers back to the front line to keep the Russians at bay. We had many casualties, and it was extremely exhausting for us soldiers. But we managed to hold off the Russians. This went on until February 16th. Then we finally got the order to break out. During the night of February 16th, we divided into 3 shock troops, and these shock troops broke through at 3 different points. 2 Wehrmacht units and 1 Waffen SS unit advanced from the other side. Stalin was already determined to destroy our division and announced on the radio that 80,000 soldiers were trapped and that we would all be captured. But there were only 43,000 of us, and none of us wanted to be captured by the Russians. We took the first Russian position without major losses. Then came a second position. We ran towards this position like crazy, and the Russians disappeared without firing a shot. Further ahead, we encountered a superior group of Russian soldiers who wanted us to surrender, but we quickly showed them that we would never surrender. These were very tough battles. Thank God we won. Then we came to the last obstacle, a damn river. It was pitch black and freezing cold. The soldiers were pinned down in front of the river. Then the Russians attacked from the flanks with T-34 tanks and shot at us. Since we had taken all our wounded with us, they and the medics were the end of our units, and none of them survived. The tanks just ran over the wounded. Anyone who could still walk or crawl had no choice but to jump into the river. I threw off my steel helmet, strapped my submachine gun to my back and jumped into the river. It was the middle of winter and we had a lot of clothes on, and we all kept our weapons because we didn't know what was on the other side. It was terrible. At least 2,000 soldiers drowned in that river. One man even tried to cross the river with a Russian horse, but none of them made it to the other side. On the other side, we were still being shot at by Russian artillery. There I saw a young soldier shoot himself. He was inexperienced and could not stand it anymore. That was tragic because only 2 kilometers further were our tanks, but we couldn't know that at that time it was dark, and when you're half frozen to death, you can't see very well. But when we realized that there was a German Tiger tank standing there in the dark, we fell to our knees. I will never forget when I asked the tank commander if we had made it. He said, "Yes, you did it." My submachine gun was empty, I was out of hand grenades, and I had only 3 rounds left in my Luger pistol. That's how I did it.